Okay, we are now live, so no swearing. Hello, and welcome to the African Pygmy Hedgehog live stream. This is our first one, so bear with us, as I'm pretty sure we're all a bit nervous. To say a little bit about the African Pygmy Hedgehog Club, we promote ethical breeding and ethical ownership of hedgehogs in the United Kingdom. And we are comprised of mostly breeders. However, we do have some owners and rescuers on our team. And yeah, African pygmy hedgehogs are not garden hedgehogs. They need to be kept indoors at a decent temperature, although we'll get into that. And yeah, I can't think of anything else. Let's introduce everybody who is in the chat right now. Do you want to start, Carol?
Yeah, hi, I'm Carol Casey. I'm up in Scotland. I'm talking to you from Stirling, originally from Glasgow. Glad to be here. Hope this goes okay. It's a bit experimental. Obviously, time will tell. That's me.
Taya?
Hi, I'm Taya. I'm from Cardiff, South Wales. I do apologise. I am on the move in the car. I run Pet by Pygdog, and I love being on the club admin. I've been on this for about 4 years, alongside Emma and Carol, and we've taken on some lovely, amazing admin, and they've done wonders with the health of our hedgehogs and our rescues and rehomes, and I hope they continue with their really hard work. Thank you.
Cara?
Thanks, Emma. I'm Cara. I'm from Swindon. I'm Puffy Pop Hedgehogs and part of the admin team, and I also help with the rehoming side with the African UK Club.
Amy?
I'm Amy. I'm a new member of admin. I'm in Lancashire. I'm not a breeder. I'm just an owner, and I've helped with a little bit of fundraising as well.
Okay. So, Amy put up a poll on our club group, and we had some very interesting suggestions of questions that we should answer. I have put up a copy for everybody to see. And the first two questions are food related, which is primarily Carol's forte. So if Carol would like to answer, the first question is, what should I feed my hedgehog?
Okay. The first thing that I will say is opinions on feeding, as with all aspects of pygmy hedgehog care, do vary quite a lot. There's new ideas coming in all the time. We're essentially a UK group, but we do speak a lot with hedgehog breeders from other parts of the world, and we're obviously picking up tips and advice from them all the time. Standard advice, usual advice that we all follow, is that the staple diet for your hedgehog should be a mix of maybe at least 3 to 4 brands of high quality dry cat food. Nothing like Whiskas or Go Cat or anything like that. Probably the best options I would say are probably grain free. You're looking at a kind of range in terms of fat and protein. Fat, you're looking at maybe roughly about 10 to 15%. Protein, you're looking for somewhere between 30 up to 35%. And the best options are normally poultry based as well. You want meat to be the first ingredient in the biscuit. As well as the dry mix, you should feed them a variety of insects. Live insects are best. Quite a lot of people do freeze some of their insects, and maybe the ones that are a bit more jumpy, or some people do struggle a bit with live insects. You can actually buy, there's a range of products available, frozen products from Kaisbrink UK, that a lot of keepers use, where you can buy some of the more unusual stuff, and obviously you can just buy in bulk, which is helpful. But yeah, as I said, a range of live insects. Most people probably feed mealworms, morio worms, calci worms, waxworms. One of the healthiest insects are probably, I would say, locusts and the roaches. As I said, some people do struggle a little bit having these things in the house, but quite a lot of keepers do freeze them as well. It's common to also feed a variety of meats. People have got different opinions about whether the meat should be cooked or raw. Well, certainly I use both. You can give them like just plain like cooked chicken. You can give them a bit of turkey mince is a really good option. Maybe not quite so much lean beef mince, but mine do get that from time to time as well. A good way of getting small amounts of beneficial fruit and veg into them is to chop that up quite fine and maybe cook it through some of their food. I'll come on to that in a wee second. Um, a lot of them like a little bit of cooked egg as well. You can scramble it, but without adding any dairy products to it. Just sort of mix it and leave it slightly wet, and they tend to enjoy it like that. Um, Opinions vary again about whether you should be feeding them fruit and veg. I wouldn't give them large amounts of veg. Their digestive tract isn't really set up for that. But small amounts of these things can be beneficial. My guys quite like a little bit of diced honeydew melon from time to time, for example. Um, Sweet corn's an option that quite a lot of them like. Sometimes I maybe shred up things like spinach and maybe put it through their egg and stuff like that. Um, there's other things that some people use as well that again, maybe some people find it a little bit harder to deal with. Things like pinky mice, as you like the sort of thing you would feed to a reptile. You can buy these things ready frozen, dealed chicks, that sort of a thing. Various other bits and bobs as well, but I would say that that's the main things you'd be looking at. But as I said, the most important things from the club perspective would be a base of high quality dry mix, followed by insects pretty much on a daily basis as well. Um, a lot of people do give their animals supplements as well. My vet recommended giving a little bit of Nutribal once a week in the food. Nutribal is a calcium, D3, and multivitamin supplement. You don't want to be given too much of that. You can overdose them in D3 if you give them that in high amounts. So once a week for something like that is fine. A lot of people give them a little bit of flaxseed oil in their food as well, which is good for their skin. My vet recommended Jamaica cat oil as another similar alternative that is specifically designed for the skin. Yeah, I don't know if. Sorry. Hello.
We can't quite hear Amy.
Yeah.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Right, okay. Has anybody got anything to add about feeding? Do you think
We've seen recently a few questions ranging from deficiency from feeding mealworms.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to cover that?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, there's been quite a lot of coverage from the European hedgehog, like the wildy rescuers, that wild hedgehogs are coming into quite a lot of difficulty after being fed large amounts of mealworms. It can cause a condition called metabolic bone disease, MBD, which basically means that there's not enough calcium in the body, and it leads to the bones becoming soft and deformed, and it can be a really, really serious health problem for them. What I would say about that, people tend to get a little bit carried away, do you know? Instead of giving something as like a supplement food, I would imagine that some of these people are probably given these wild animals shed loads of
Yeah.
mealworms, and I would think that quite often as well, they're like the dried mealworms, do you know, that you can buy at the shops, you can buy at the pound shop and stuff like that, as opposed to live mealworms, which people normally gut load with beneficial foods that then make it more nutritious for the hedgehog. I mean, you do need to watch. I mean, a lot of the fresh foods that you feed to pygmy hedgehogs are calcium deficient. And that is why it is recommended, highly strongly recommended, to give them the staple of the dry cat food, because that is nutritionally balanced. So if they're getting the staple nutritionally balanced diet, and then you're maybe giving them a wee supplement once a week on top of that, then unless you're feeding them massive volumes of things like mealworms and they're not eating their biscuits, then it shouldn't really become problematic. What I would say though is it's not recommended to only use mealworms as an insect supplement, because they probably are the least nutritious out of all the insects that you can buy, all the feeder insects, which, if I'm being honest, is maybe part of the reason why they're so popular, because they're cheap. So we would recommend to use a range of different items to sort of alleviate that problem as well.
Right, excellent. That's a great segue onto our next question, which is, how much live food should I be feeding my hedgehog?
Okay. Again, opinions vary about this. A lot of... Hello? Hello?
No, go on, you're all right. We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, there's been a bit of a movement in the last couple of years towards feeding a more natural diet for your hedgehog, which, you know, obviously sounds great in terms of, you know that this kind of notion that, you know, these animals aren't designed to eat processed dry food and whatever else. And if it's done correctly, then, you know, a natural diet, you know, sounds very beneficial. There is a risk, as we've already discussed, about not getting that quite right and it leading to some sort of deficiency, which can be very detrimental for your animal's health. So I wouldn't be given so much live food that your hedgehog won't eat the biscuits. I personally, and most of the breeders that I know as well, give some form of live food every night in addition to the biscuits. If it was me, in terms of sort of portion control, say I maybe give a small spoonful of mealworms maybe twice a week. It could be 2 or 3 locusts once a week, 2 or 3 large roaches, maybe 5 to 10 waxworms, you know, depending on how chubby the hedgehog is. A few of mine are beefers. Maybe like a heaped teaspoonful of calci worms, that sort of thing. Again, opinions on that will vary. Some people seem to be giving, you know, really large amounts of live food at the moment, which isn't necessarily good or bad. It does depend on the overall diet. But just in terms of maybe sort of standard pet owners that are just learning about the diet and stuff like that, I would advise a wee bit of caution in that regard.
Right, excellent. Thank you. You're
Sure.
like a hedgehog encyclopedia. I think we'll ask Cara this one. How can I get my hedgehog to like me?
How can you what?
How can I get my hedgehog to like me?
Oh my god, that's a question. Thanks, Emma.
No problem. I thought I'd give you an easy one.
Sometimes people expect too much from the hedgehog straight off when they pick them up, because you need time for them to settle in and adjust to their new environment, smells, etc. I always recommend that you wash your hands thoroughly in just water, because people use unscented soap, and then wonder why they get bit. I think also, instead of trying to force the hedgehog, I think the best off is just, even if it's just sitting with one on your lap in a blanket, resting your hand gently on them and letting them explore you rather than you trying to explore them, and building them up slowly and not trying to overstimulate them then. So I think people see it on Facebook and see them on YouTube and see the ones what are being handled loads and tame, and they expect that straight off when they pick their hedgehog up. They don't take into account quilling and comfortable skin with the quilling, and they just don't take all that into account. They expect the hedgehog to come out with and be a cuddle bug, and some hedgehogs are just not cuddle bugs. I've got one called Rolo who'd rather he hates me. He would rather do his own thing. So we've got this thing going on now. I have my space, he has his space. If I invade his space, so let me know about it. So
yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand, is that, like people, hedgehogs each have their own different personalities.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a hedgehog pay her. And she is so stupid, it's unbelievable. You can literally clean the around her and she doesn't wake up. And if you pick her up, she'll just snuggle into you. She's just soppy as hell. And then, like I said, I've got Rolo. You look at him wrong. He's not. So I think it's just time, patience. Just don't. I mean, my very first head, I was petrified, and that's when I was in the club. And they helped me loads to get my confidence up to handling him. But he was just a huffball. I remember sweating just trying to hold him, and I was like panicking, and all these emotions. But after a couple of years, he decided that he liked me now.
It took time.
Yeah, it just takes time. It's just if you're willing to put that time in, and if you're not willing to put that time in, then the hedgehog's really not pet for you. I mean, I've had people ask me if they're spiky, are they sharp? They're going to be spiky and they can be sharp. If you get like Harley or Snow, you can just stroke them. They're just flat as anything. But you've got to expect if you're going to purchase a hedgehog, they are spiky.
Yes, and I think it does depend. You know, if they want you to handle them, they will be a little more receptive than if they really don't want to be picked up.
Can I just add to that about bonding bags?
Yeah.
Because I get it a lot. Obviously, when I put pictures of Harley up, I get a lot of people saying, "How's he so tame?" And it is partly due to personality because I've got two of them. They're both brought up the same way. One's grumpy and one's not. But with the bonding bags, I think that really helps in terms of you carrying them about. They're not having to be in your hands all the time, so like you can carry them and do things at the same time. But getting them used to the movement and the noise, because some of them you can't even breathe and they'll huff at you, won't they? But that just gets used to general movement and general noise, and even during the day because they can sleep.
Yeah.
I think they're really good. That's what I would recommend.
Yeah, they are. It's a good way to be able to carry on with your daily chores and take your hedgehog with you at the same time. That is a really good point. I think bonding bags and you know, putting something into the Viv that smells like you when you first get your hedgehog home, I think those could help towards getting your hedgehog to like you. Is there anybody else that wants to contribute?
I suppose the thing, so that's Carol coming in here. I suppose the thing that I've observed is sometimes it does depend on perception as well. Like I've had hedgehogs that I've bred come back for boarding, you know, when the owners have went away on holiday, and you know they've been saying to me, well, you know, he's really huffy and whatever else. And then sometimes when they arrive here, I'm like, I don't really think this wee one could be much tamer. Do you know? I mean, they are naturally quite. They can be quite vocal little things, and they do sort of go a bit spiky sometimes and whatever else. But I mean, pretty much most of them will do that, and they'll also react to you in a certain way as well. Like, you know, somebody that's really confident handling them will tend to get a different response as well from someone that's like a little bit more ginger.
Yeah.
Again, you know, the same sort of a thing. You know, I've had owners come back and then they're like really surprised at how docile their hedgehog seems to be when I scoop him out the carrier. But I think it's because because I've got them in quite a kind of strong, just quite a sort of strong kind of manhandling grip. They just seem to kind of succumb to that, you know. So that is maybe something to bear in mind as well, that you know, they're probably not naturally as sappy as some other small pets, and even a nice tame animal will, you know, like hiss and huff a little bit occasionally and will go a bit spiky sometimes, and that's just what they do, and that's just a kind of species specific thing, but they will react to you in a certain way as well. So you know, really confident handling does help a lot.
I've also found that if you handle them too delicately, they tend to be a lot more nervous. We went and picked up one of the rescue hedgehogs, and his family were handling him like he was made of glass. And he just stayed in a huffy ball the entire time. And when I picked him up, I handled him like Carol said, you know, with a firm grip. and he unballed straight away.
Yeah.
You know, so I think they do. If you're going to handle them very carefully and nervously, they're going to pick up on that.
I think it's probably like an inbuilt thing. Like if you watch a dog that is not used to hedgehogs and the way that they approach the hedgehog, and they'll maybe sniff a little bit and just slightly touch the animal, and then they get a big fright and the hedgehog jumps, you know, and their nose gets pricked and whatever. And I think it's probably a bit of a sort of inbuilt kind of prey instinct that if you sort of tickle them or touch them lightly, that they just sort of react, you know.
Yeah, because I see that on Facebook, Carol. You see some people and they're stroking them. I always try and stroke them quite firmly from the shoulders down, because you see them with their finger and they're gently touching the top of them, and we're doing 360-degree circles because it's reacting to the little tickle on the back. It's ticking round. Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, I've seen that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so shall we move on to the next question?
Sure.
What questions should I ask a breeder before purchasing a hedgehog?
Wow.
Where to start, huh?
I mean, to be fair, when I got, like, neither of my two are from club approved breeders. The first time round was just because I had no idea that even existed. But second time round, like, I thought I'd done everything right. I'd asked if she registered her hedgehogs. You know, I asked what she fed them, what heat source they had, and I thought I'd gone right. But then it turned out that she didn't register them at all, and she'd lied to me about the registration certificates and everything. So I think not just what you're asking, but also what you're seeing. So, like, if I ever did that again, I'd be making sure that I saw certificates beforehand.
Yeah, and just for people that aren't aware, club approved breeders are breeders that adhere to a code of ethics that we set out. This code of ethics is followed strictly, and anybody found not to be adhering to that is removed. This is because we can then help communicate between breeders and owners, and to cover kind of, you know, genetic illnesses and things like that. We're keeping detailed records through the club registry. So we strongly encourage people to buy from club approved breeders if they are in the UK. However, we do understand that, you know, a lot of people aren't aware of the club until after they've purchased their hedgehog. As Amy just touched on it, registrations, I think that is a vital thing. There's no real good reason not to register. It's £1 a registration, and for that you can then make sure your hedgehog isn't inbred, and to also trace any genetic illnesses back through the lines. What other questions would you recommend asking?
Well,
I always say to them, you need to search your breeder as much as what you are finding your hog. So even if you've got to ask around, have you ever heard of, for example, of Puffy Pop Hedgehogs, or just ask around if people have heard of them, what type of reputation they've got. A good breeder will give you a regular update on the hogs and the babies while you're waiting to pick them up. Also, a breeder would, if you're close enough, will let you go around and visit them for a certain week. There should be no reason for like a blackout between a breeder and a purchaser, I think.
Yeah, and I also think it's a major red flag if the breeder is supplying pet shops.
Yeah.
I think that's a quick money earner for a lot of breeders.
I think, like, what you know, if I was to, but I mean, you know, now that
oh, hang on, Kylie's joined us.
Okay.
Hi, Kylie.
Hello.
Right, let's bring on Kylie. Right, Kylie, you need to answer that question now.
Yeah.
Hello?
It's
gone.
Right. What I was going to say there just before Kylie came on, my lines are quite established now, so I don't really buy in a lot of animals. But the kind of things that I would be interested in would be about the parents. You know, I might want to know a little bit about the temperament of both of the parents, and just a few general questions about what they're like, what their health is like, that kind of a thing. If a breeder that I knew was asking me about, about the kind of best animals that I have here, then I might be pointing them in the direction of, like I've got a wee boy who's not long ago fathered a litter, who's now 5 years old, which is pretty old for a hedgehog, and he's still in great health. So to me, that his babies will hopefully be nice, healthy animals. So that kind of a thing. An established breeder might be able to show you not only the parents, but also the grandparents, and maybe even the great grandparents of the baby that you're looking at, and you can get an idea about like their health, their temperament, that kind of thing. I tend to ask what people have been feeding them as well. If somebody's been feeding their hedgehogs on a really crappy diet, I tend to think that's not a very good sign, and it maybe doesn't get the babies off to the best start.
Yeah.
Yeah, one sec. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep up with everything else. Taya, I believe you're home now.
Yes, I'm home. Finally.
So Taya can now join us for the chat. So I thought we'd save this one for Taya to join in with. Taya, what are the pros and cons of owning hedgehogs?
The cons. Oh, I don't know. There's no cons. They're always beautiful.
Well, they smell, don't they? I mean,
yeah.
They're not roses.
Well, yeah. Yes, they do smell. They do poo a lot. They do need daily cleaning. They are an animal that you need to give attention. It's not something you can just forget about, like a hamster or a fish. And they are expensive. Their diets are quite, intricate with the insects and the high-end biscuits and maybe a raw food, or the chicken and the mince. It is costly.
Vet bills.
Yeah.
Vet bills, yeah.
Yeah, and at the vets, they're classed as an exotic pet.
Yeah.
So they are more expensive than your average cat or dog.
And depending where you're located, how much your vet costs as well.
Yeah.
But a pro, they can.
That's the point as well, to have money aside for vet bills.
Yeah.
And the pros, I've had hedgehogs that are like dogs. They'll come to call. They come out and greet you when you do feed them. Like, I'm in my hedgehog house now, and I think there's 3 of them have just come out now for food. Yeah, they are wonderful animals. They're very, very. It's so intriguing. They just come out and they come and see you, and they're lovely to watch. I tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the firm warning to anybody who's thinking of getting a hedgehog is that they do require attention and they do smell, especially when they like to poo and wee as they're running on the wheel.
Yeah, the wheels.
I think that's the downside, isn't it?
Nail clipping.
Oh, nail clipping. Yeah, well, that's actually our next question. So I don't know which one of you would like to answer this one. How do I cut my hog's nails and how often?
That can vary from hog though, can't it?
Yeah, I don't think there is one answer for that one because every hog is different.
Yeah. I mean, for some of mine, I can just sit them on the palm of my hand with the feet through my fingers and just gently cut away. On others, it's a wrestling match.
I mean, they say put them in water, but that doesn't always work because some would rather drown themselves than have their feet.
Yeah. Typically, I think it should really be monthly, shouldn't it? That you cut your hog's nails.
I have to do Harley's every week, or they'd be curling under.
Sorry, Amy.
I have to do Harley's every week, or they'd be curling under. So
Wow.
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think if you get one that you can't cut their nails on, then you should take them to the vet. It's better to have, pay and have the vet cut them than, like Amy said, them curl under and be painful. Our next question is, what can I use to bath my hedgehogs?
Coconut oil, aveno oil.
Yeah. Oat.
Aveno baby one. Don't drop the water. Just put it in the water and let the water come in. Because if you start shaking it, all the bubbles come up. A little bubble bath rather than just about oats. Oats bag.
Yeah, oats are really good for dry skin as well.
Yeah, I tend to use oats more, but I have one boy who's quite pale, has a lot of dry skin. So I tend to use coconut oil on him.
Yeah, I can't say I've tried coconut oil yet.
We have to show coconut oil. It smells good too.
Yeah. Bit slippy though when you try and pick them up.
Yeah.
I would say coconut oil is my favourite. I wouldn't use aveno oil. I don't know why. It's not something I recommend personally. Or oats.
I've used aveno oil quite often, and I quite like it. But yeah, a more natural option would be better.
People decide to use oats. It's a food. It's got added sugars into it. It all depends on what oats you use.
Yeah,
you can buy the colloidal.
That
is really fine powder. If I stopped being so lazy, I would start making the little bath bags again, because I used to make them to put in my care packs.
Yeah,
and that's really easy. You just buy the powder online. And you can just divvy it up into these little tea bag things.
Yeah, I agree with that oats, but with some owners might go into their breakfast cupboard and just pick out, the cereal oats.
I'll be honest, that would be me.
I'm staying quiet.
Okay, so why does my hedgehog sleep all the time?
Well, first of all, I suppose the thing is they are nocturnal, which I think most people know, but maybe a few people don't realise straight off. So a lot of the time they're not really going to be up and about, running about. My lot do get up if they think there might be creeps.
Mine are up now.
Yeah, and in general, most nocturnal animals, you won't really see much of them during the day.
I think age plays into it as well. Young hoglets tend to sleep an awful lot.
And routine. When your hogs are in a routine.
Yeah.
Because mine are up now. I come in here every day, same time. I'm in here now. They're all up. They're all ready for their food. They're all running on their wheels. They're pacing up and down for their food. So I think it is to do with routine.
I think as well, quite a lot of new owners are scared to get them up. Like, they think if they haven't woken up themselves, they've got to leave them. But even if you get them up when they're not ready, that's getting them into that routine. And even if they're sleeping on you, it's still bonding, isn't it?
Yeah.
Norman and Maria are listening. So hi.
Hi, Norman and Maria.
So
my hogs are all different, to be honest. I've got some that will be up at 5 o'clock wheeling away, and I've got some real lazy bones who don't get up till about 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like us. They're all different. Same with their nails and their coats, and every single one is different. I love of the hedgehogs is that they've got their own little personalities.
Yeah, none of mine are the same.
I think it's also important to just say that if you are finding that your hedgehog is suddenly sleeping an awful lot, and it's out of character, to please go and see a vet. It could be a symptom of something more severe. So just to cover our bases. Okay, so next question. What temperature should my Viv be kept at to avoid hibernation? This is a controversial one.
Well, I was always told anywhere between 21 and
26. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if your hedgehog's too cold, it's going to go into hibernation. But I also think they give you fair warning if they're too hot as well, by splatting out. But
it's worth checking what they used to before they come home as well.
yeah.
I've got 9 and I heat my hog house, but there are 3 bibs that are heated by ceramic heat emitters and heat mats, and it's normally the older hedgehogs that need that extra heat.
Yeah. I think when it's an extreme of any age, isn't it? Really young and really old. And also, if they've tried to hibernate once, they're going to be more prone to it in the future.
Yeah. Just, I suppose, just a wee word of caution. I know that some owners, will say that they've never had a heat source and that they just keep their animal at room temperature. And yeah, okay, some people do live in quite a tropical environment, myself included, because my house is full of animals, so it's always really warm here. But just because an animal isn't maybe cold enough to hibernate doesn't mean that if it's at suboptimal temperature that there's not going to be a knock-on effect. I mean, I don't really know if there's been any scientific studies on this or anything like that, but some keepers who do seem to be quite knowledgeable, whose opinions I do respect, have said that it's their belief that if an animal's kept at too low a temperature, then it can have an impact on the functioning of their organs. So it can contribute to them becoming unwell in terms of their liver and kidneys. So I think maybe that's just something for people to bear in mind as well.
I always say to me, if you've got central heating, which goes off in the night and goes off in the day when you're out at work, you need a heat source.
Yeah, I mean, you're running the risk of, if something happens during the day while you're not at home, that your hedgehog could get really cold, and by the time you get home, it's too late.
And even in a bed with a heat source, if you've got them near a window and you've got the window open, there's a draft coming in, you still run a risk even with a heat source of the draft getting.
Yeah. I mean, was it like a year ago? There was a lady who had balanced her heat source on top of a plastic box. Do you remember?
She set the bib on fire.
Yeah, she set the plastic box on fire with her hedgehog in it. Fortunately, her mum was home at the time and saw what had happened and saved the hedgehog. But she could have very nearly lost not only her hedgehog but her whole house.
Oh wow!
So it's so important that when you do use heat sources that they're properly secured, not balancing very carefully on something.
And using the proper way as well. I think there tends to be quite a lot of confusion with things like reptile heat mats about the safety to use them, which is one of the reasons that the club doesn't normally really recommend reptile heat mats, because some people do have unfortunate accidents with them because they've done something they shouldn't have done,
Yeah.
One thing I've seen quite a lot recently is people who are asking about the heat sources, but then they're worried about the heat lamps. They don't want to use heat lamps because they think that they're dangerous. So it's worth mentioning, that it's worth having the heat lamp on the thermostat, obviously, rather than the dangers of your hedgehog hibernating.
But to include a heat guard as well.
Yeah.
I mean, if you like risk than there is buying a stuff, unless you can verify that it's from a good place. Because
bulbs off eBay from China.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't really want to come out and say that. Okay.
I mean, I keep mine at about 24.
Yeah.
When we had that snow, I turned it up to 26. And as you know, I had electricity cut for over an hour, and it was an absolute nightmare. And, you know, I was so worried, but so luckily you guys were there and told me what to do and put in fleeces and blankets over the top of the viz to keep the heat in. We were lucky it came back on again, but since I've bought additional heating as just as an emergency precaution, because I don't want that happening again.
See, like, I would say that like Harley doesn't have a heat lamp, but that's all down to knowing your hedgehog, knowing what they need. And you come up with a heat lamp because he does anything above 22, and he's like flatted out. He hates it, but he's got him with her lamp, and he has a heat lamp as well.
I think that goes back to being really learning the importance of learning the character of your hedgehog.
Yeah.
You get to know him really well, or her really well.
As Taya touched on earlier, I think it's
Sorry, I missed that.
The old I've needed a heat pad in the past.
Yeah, like I'm always prepared to put on any if he needs one because he's 4 now, but like also needs it warmer than he does.
I mean, I found with my girl Poppy as she got older, she felt the cold a lot more, and she ended up being, you know, needing a heat pad when she had never needed one before.
Yeah.
But again, it's all down to the individual hedgehog.
Yeah.
On to the next question, which we kind of did just touch on. What is the best heat source?
I always still recommend the lamps, even though I don't have one for Harley, I've got one for her.
Yeah, so for people listening, that's the and my mind has now gone blank.
Ceramic heat emitter.
Thank you. Ceramic heat emitter with a pulse thermostat. For people listening, that's the oh, why are we getting feedback?
It's me. It's my fault.
Why would you not suggest using just a pet nap?
I think a pet nap, if your house is usually at an ambient temperature, is probably going to be fine. It's just if it's cold.
Hello, Fran.
I can't get the camera to go off.
I had that problem earlier, but I wasn't live.
There's a little camera button.
Yeah, but it's not going on.
I'm glad it's
Just put it on your cat, and then we can just see the cat the entire time.
My ceiling's fine.
Okay, so why is it not okay to just use a pet nap?
Some people do use pet naps, and it's absolutely fine. If your house is usually quite warm, then a pet nap can work well. It's more for people who have are living in quite cold conditions, because a pet nap doesn't heat the temperature of the air. So therefore, like you're going to have, like, it's almost like having a heated section of flooring, that when the animal's standing on that or lying on that, they're going to get the heat. But when they're running up and down, if the air temperature's cold, then obviously that can still be quite problematic for them. So it's really a judgment call, I think.
Yeah, literally, as we're speaking, Charlie come out and splat because his pet nap's on.
I mean, I use pet naps and I've never had a problem, but I will say that I have a dedicated hedgehog room that I have a bunch of heaters in, and it's kept warm all year round.
I've got my cabin, got pet naps. I haven't got any CHEs out here. Radiator, which you all recommended.
Yeah.
One day in here, I'm stripped off, and I'm still. They don't need. If I had CHEs in it, they would never come on.
Tropical hedgehog room.
Yeah, I mean.
Okay, so for the next question, which I believe might be the last one, what illnesses and diseases are common in hedgehogs?
Okay. Do you want me to start with that?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I would like to take the subject of wobbly hedgehog syndrome.
Yeah.
But yeah, you go ahead. Knock yourself out. It's going to be a long one.
Okay, so Emma's going to talk about wobbly hedgehog syndrome. I've got quite a large herd of hedgehogs, and I'm sad to say that I've had quite a range of health issues here over time. I'm lucky to have really good vet care, which has helped me to learn quite a lot as well. Unfortunately, pygmy hedgehogs are known for being prone to cancers. Cancers is a biggie. From what I've been told by my vet and from what I've read, they reckon that some of the reason for that is due to a kind of limited original gene pool. You know, like now there's like a large population of pet hedgehogs, but they came from a relatively small group of animals. So there's not necessarily as much genetic diversity within that group as you would like. What I would say is that if the cancers are caught quite early, it's not necessarily game over. Sometimes they are quite treatable. Oral cancers are common. I did have one girl that had an oral cancer in the roof of her mouth, and my vet did manage to successfully treat that. He basically froze it off using something called cryosurgery. It was really quite impressive. If the cancer's in the bone of the jaw, then things become a lot more problematic. That tends to be quite aggressive. It can't really be removed without removing part of the jawbone, which my vet probably just wouldn't do, because it would cause a lot of suffering, and the recovery from that might not be terribly good. So cancers are a biggie. The other ones that I've seen, mammary tumours seem to be relatively common, not as aggressive as the oral tumours. I had one girl that had a number of of mammary tumours, but still lived a normal lifespan, and had them removed several times and recovered from each operation quite well. But I would say, you know, as your animals get older, monitor them, take them to the vet if there's any suspicious lumps and bumps, and get them checked out sooner rather than later. Some of these things can develop and grow really quickly. Another common problem, especially for older animals, relates to gum disease, dental disease, which is quite common, and sometimes it's hard to tell without x-rays and stuff like that whether it's a tumour you've got or else whether it's dental disease. Hedgehogs can also get another gum-related condition. I think it's called gingivital hyperplasia or something like that. And I've seen a few animals with that, and there tends to be concern that is cancer. But it's actually just like the gums have become overgrown, and the vets can treat that just by removing part of the gum. So if you find something like that, don't immediately think worst case scenario. You know, please do get it checked out. Sometimes with the female hedgehogs, sometimes they can be prone to womb-related disorders. If your animal starts seeing blood, and it could be in relation to some sort of bladder problem, you know, like a UTI or something like that. But it could also be coming from the uterus. Again, you know, worst case scenario, the uterus might end up having to be removed. You might need to get your animal a hysterectomy. They do recover pretty well from hysterectomies in my experience. So if you weren't really sure about that, if your vet wasn't really sure about that, if your animal is in reasonable health, I would say go for it. They do tend to do quite well after those operations if they're otherwise in good condition. When hedgehogs are ill, what I'll say is they quite often go off their food. Sometimes that can be the first indicator that they're sick. If they go off their food for more than a day or two, then they are sick. Just take them at the vet. Don't wait. By the time they've not eaten for about a week, they might die. They quite often do. They go downhill really, really quickly. And if they're not eating as well, it can cause other problems, because they can develop a condition called fatty liver disease, which apparently the only other animal that gets it is cats. And it's when the animal isn't eating, and especially with chubby animals, and then their body starts to break down all the fat. But that happens too quickly, and the liver gets all clogged up with fat, which then basically makes the liver stop working, and they get really sick. And again, at that point, they'll start to go downhill really, really quickly. So if your animal's not eating, get it to the vets quick. If your animal's in treatment, either after having an operation, if your animal's in some sort of medication or something like that, syringe feed them. Don't just let them go without syringe until they get their appetite back. And you'll be able to get some further advice about good foods to do that with. But it's really important to get the food into them to stop the fatty liver problem from kicking in. That's a couple of the biggies. I mean, what we discussed earlier on was the possibility of animals that are being fed a diet composed of, composed mainly of things like insects and cooked chicken and stuff like that, low calcium foods, could develop metabolic bone disease, which not only affects the bones, but it can cause muscle weakness, and as it progresses, it can cause like tremors, progressing into seizures and stuff like that as well. So it's really important to give your animal a balanced diet. Calcium deficiency can also be mistaken for wobbly hedgehog syndrome, which again Emma's going to go on to talk about. As your animal gets older, sometimes they can start to have problems with their organs as well. And I've had one animal, the poor Tormund, who had kidney disease. He actually wasn't really all that old, but he'd been through a bit of a bad time, and I'd gotten back from my previous home, and I don't really know what had happened to him in the interim period. But yeah, poor Tormund had a problem with his kidneys, and that's really serious. When that happens, their kidneys aren't really going to start working properly again. You can try and manage it with medication and stuff like that, and by changing their diet and things, but it's quite difficult. The other problem that they can get relates to liver disease, which seems to be quite common. That seems to be a bit more treatable, just based on my own experience. I've had a few older animals that have been diagnosed with liver trouble and have been prescribed something called hepato liquid, and they seem to do really well on that. If you the kind of things you might see if your animal's got sort of kidney liver trouble, you might see them being off their food, being lethargic, maybe a bit of vomiting. They can become quite nauseous because their system's getting poisoned and stuff like that. With the kidney trouble, Tormund was struggling to pee, and bizarrely, then when he was peeing, it was like there was like solids in his pee. So some of it actually looked like little worms, which, as you can imagine, wasn't great. With those kind of problems, you're probably going to need a full range of tests to get the diagnosis. Like blood tests, X-rays to rule anything else out. Possibly kind of urine analysis as well. So that can all be a bit grim. But as I said, with the liver trouble, that can be quite treatable. So again, don't just assume that your animal's getting old and it's going to die and that's it. If you go and you get the test done, then quite often you can find a solution that will prolong their life for a wee bit longer and also give them a better quality of life as well. Keep an eye on your pet's feet. It's really common for them to get bits of string or hair and stuff like that wrapped around the feet, especially the back feet. We were actually just speaking about that. And
Amy just had that happen yesterday.
Yeah.
I put a picture on.
And it can, if it doesn't get treated right away, then because the circulation can get cut off, the foot can start to swell up. And it can become really quite serious. And if you don't either get the hair off, or if it's embedded too deep, as happened with one of mine, if you don't take them to the vet and get the hair removed, then it can actually lead to the animal having to have their foot amputated because the tissue will start to die. So yeah, just keep a wee eye on their feet. I found it's quite a handy thing just to have a pair of like nail scissors with like a really slim, with really kind of slim blades on them lying around. Because it can be quite easy, it can just be a bit easier to remove hair and stuff if you've got something like that, the implement like that. I suppose in terms of health, skin conditions, mites is quite common.
I was going to say, Fran.
Yeah.
Would you like to cover mites? Because you've got quite an extensive experience of it with rescue hedgehogs.
Yeah, well, I tend to always treat mine 3 times as a rule of like adaptive.
Well, what do you treat them with?
Xeno Mini 50 is the best to treat the hedgehogs, the individual hedgehogs. Obviously, if you've got a group of hedgehogs, there's other products you can use as well. But Xeno Mini is best for single hedgehogs. You can dose it better. It's a lot easier to manage and stuff like that, how much you're giving them.
And should you ever let your vet inject ivermectin to treat mites?
Not a chance ever. Alarm bells.
Yeah,
definitely.
Hedgehogs do okay with ivermectin as a spot-on treatment, but not
injectable. Definitely not.
No. So, how do you treat the rest of your house?
I generally, you can flea bomb if you're concerned about the whole house, I suppose. If you had carpets, mine's all laminate floor, so I generally just literally, I empty the hedgehog room, spray the room completely with RDAP, spray every viv, have all the hedgehogs upstairs, away from the room, leave the room for 2 hours, shut the door, and then literally nothing will live in there. Like, no bugs will be alive by the time you finish spraying. RDOP spray is amazing stuff. It's amazing. I used it like when I had reptiles and all that. But it's definitely the go-to product for me anyway. And health-wise as well, I'd just like to mention, like Carol was saying earlier about them, like they'll show warning signs, you know, if they're going to be ill. They sleep outside the normal sleeping places. They won't wheel. The feeding, obviously, how much they eat is obviously another alarm bell, but it's the wheeling for me. I've noticed if ever one of mine's getting ill, they'll stop wheeling, and you can tell straight away. Anything that's off colour, just get it checked out. The sooner the better. You know, there's it's the cost of a consult fee. It's definitely worth the life of your hedgehog, in my view, anyway.
And that comes down to like knowing your own animals as well, because I've had all sorts of problems with Autumn, and I know that every time she's come like, she'll sit at the front of the vivarium and watch out for like hours on end, which she never does, because normally once you put her in, she wants to ignore you and run off. But it's like minimal little behaviours, because that is something before I can even tell, before she stops eating, before she stops wheeling, that's what she'll do.
Yeah, it's definitely alarm bells. You get to know their little quirks, I suppose. Each individual one has got their own little quirks, and if they're acting off colour, you'll notice it. If you know your hedgehog, you'll know.
Did you want to add anything, Cara?
Eyes.
Oh, eyes.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one, yeah.
Cole's calling me in for my dinner.
Who would like to cover the topic of eyes?
Because I've seen loads of posts with eyes, and I think anything with an eye, if you're worried about the eye, go and get it checked straight away.
It's definitely time sensitive eyes, isn't it?
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. And I took a hog on once, bless him, and his eye was in the right state, and they said, but he's wheeling and he's running around and he's happy.
Yeah, well, that's nice, but they can't tell you that they're ill. They can't say, "Oh, my eye's falling out of my head. I'm hurting."
Sometimes a hedgehog is where any animal are very good at hiding pain.
Masking, yeah, they mask it well.
Anything you're unsure of, just get them to the vet and get it checked.
Well, they're prey animals, and because of that, they have to hide it. Otherwise, they get picked off by something bigger.
Yeah.
So hedgehogs are prone to having their eyes come out.
Rupture. They rupture, don't they? I've had personal experience with this myself. My first one, I had the eye was removed. It healed nicely and all that. It was stitched over. My second one.
Am I right in thinking if one eye ruptures, they're more prone for the second one?
There's a high chance they will lose the next one within 6 months, without a doubt. Both of mine lost them one after another. It's something. It's in the genetics. If it's in that line, then pretty much they're going to get it again, I would suggest.
Apparently,
from personal experience, anyway.
Not that I know much about glaucoma, but apparently they can be prone to glaucoma. So I don't know if maybe that's a factor in that happening.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
I think it all stems down to, like you said, genetics.
Yeah,
I think if there is a problem,
genetically related for me anyway.
I think if there's a problem with eyes popping out, you should then note that.
Yeah.
And avoid using a line that has a problem like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, cataracts. We've seen that recently, haven't we, with a few hedgehogs?
It seems to be quite common that now. I've just like quite a lot. I mean, personally, I've got no experience with it. None of mine have ever had any cataracts or any issues like that. But
no, I can't say I've had any visual problems with mine.
I've seen on the group of you can see them straight away, like the cloudy eyes.
Nugget, my little girl, she's got it. So I just won't breed her. She's retired. She's doing her own thing, but you can see it's like a white film.
It's like cloudy eyes a bit, isn't it? It's weird.
Yeah. Is there anything else anybody else would like to add about health related conditions?
I was going to say, can we sort of let viewers know, people that are listening, how to tell for mites? I don't think we covered that, maybe.
Who would like to cover that one?
I'll go on. I will. Generally, I've got a black worktop. I literally will just plonk the hedgehog on the worktop, give them a good rub down, and then remove the hedgehog from the worktop and watch the spot where any bits that have fallen off, and literally OCD watch the spot to see if any of it moves.
Yeah, because they don't have noticeable legs or anything like that.
Literally, they will. If it's mites, they will move, but it's hard to spot it. It's minute movements, and you will think you're losing the plot if you look at them for long enough. Literally, you might think you're going a bit crazy, but yeah.
Ladies, I'll have to catch you in a bit.
Okay, bye, Cara.
Bye. Bye. I use a magnifying glass as well.
Oh, see, I don't. What, when it's on the hot?
Yeah, I use a black fleece, and then I use a magnifying. I can see it better. Maybe it's just me because I'm blind.
Generally, what I do, I'll like any bits that I've scraped off, I'll scrape them so they're into a line, and then I'll watch to see if anything moves off the line that I've created. Basically, that's what I do because
that's a good idea.
A tad OCD.
And I should say that sometimes if the hedgehog is heavily infested, you can just tell.
You can see, you'll feel it on your hands. I've actually had them bite my arms.
Yeah,
I think I might have shared the picture with you girls. Literally, it was up my arms. It was quite bad. That was one of the rehomes from last year, I think it was, or something like that. But it was quite a heavy infestation, and yeah, they were biting.
Sometimes you can see pictures, say on pre-loved or whatever, and you can tell just by looking that the hedgehog has
kind of the fur on the hedgehog's face look a bit velvety, kind of.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. You can spot it if they're badly infested. You can spot it straight away. But,
yeah,
and like I said, they will bite you as well. They're not shy at all.
It's maybe worth mentioning that I think, when animals have got a bit of a problem with losing quills and flaky skin and stuff, you do sort of go to thinking it's mites, but it could also be fungal as well. One of mine had a bit of a problem. Some of you guys had met me. Good old fat man.
yeah.
Had a bit of a problem with skin and some kind of quill loss that went on for several months. And it seems to have got better, and I think it probably was fungal. Although my vet did do a skin scrape when I first took him in when it wasn't that bad, and nothing was really detected at that point. But it gave me like an oral medication to give him for fungal, and he seems to be doing better now. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Has anyone else ever used diatomaceous earth?
Sorry, Emmy?
Has anybody else ever used the diatomaceous earth? It's like a white powder.
Oh, the powder.
Yeah.
Fran, you're the one that put me onto that.
Yeah, I think it might have been Taya that mentioned it to me, but yeah, I have used it. Generally, I use it in like big tubs, and they just have a good like forage round in it, basically. And
I tend to mix mine in with the bedding, with the finer card or whatever cardboard bedding.
I don't really use loose bedding unless it's with like babies and stuff like that. But yeah, it's good to mix it in with the bedding just to ensure there's no mites in there. Or if there is, then it will obviously kill them off before they start infesting your house and stuff like that.
Yeah, I used to let them dig in the sand, but I use that now instead because at least it's got the
there's a benefit to it, I suppose, rather than, I mean, obviously they do make a mess. I would recommend a litter box with just a circle cut out the front is what I use personally, because they will spread it all over.
A big story box.
And the last subject for us would be wobbly hedgehog syndrome. Now, I don't think any of us have personal experience with it, do we?
No.
We can only speak from what we've read from others that have had hedgehogs with wobbly hedgehog syndrome. But it is a progressive neurological disease that shows symptoms similar to MS. And Typically, it starts with the back legs. They become unsteady and they struggle to stand, and then eventually it works its way up to full body paralysis until the hedgehog either passes away from being unable to eat, or you decide to have the hedgehog put to sleep. We are very, very fortunate that there has been no confirmed cases confirmed via necropsy in the United Kingdom since 2011. However, we're very aware that it is still a problem in America and in some other European countries. This is one of the reasons we all strongly recommend registering your hedgehogs, because if there is a problem like that, letting the registry know, we can put it on our records and ensure that that's not something that happens, over and over again. Is there anything anybody else would like to recommend or suggest or talk about?
See, with the wobbly hedgehog syndrome, there's a lot of we've seen a lot of posts recently, haven't we, where vets have gone straight to that as a diagnosis.
Yeah, it seems to be that
I think
you
it's
go in
primarily
with a wobbly hedgehog, and it's got to have wobbly hedgehog
yeah,
syndrome.
it's just that the vets is like they put it in Google, and the first thing that's going to come up for them if they're inexperienced with hedgehogs, it's wobbly hedgehog syndrome, and most of the
Yeah.
information is from America. It's not something that we've really got
The
much of.
majority of UK vets are working off research papers from the 1990s in America.
Yeah, so it's just,
so they're very limited knowledge. But Carol mentioned a number of conditions that can imitate, wobbling in hedgehogs.
ear infections is the biggest one, I think I found personally.
And hibernation attempts. The
Yeah.
amount of people that come
It's
to me and say,
always-
"Oh, it's just happened just now."
Yeah,
And it's like, well, yeah, but wobbly hedgehog syndrome
it's not
takes a
instant.
long
It's a
time.
progressive disease. Yeah.
Yeah, so most people have knowledge of it. Like, I've had that recently with autumn wobbling. And obviously, if I hadn't have known about wobbly hedgehog syndrome, I would have just gone in thinking, "Oh, that's what it is. It's just going to get worse." But
Yeah, and with your autumn, it turned out to be arthritis, didn't it?
yeah, we treated
Oh
her.
no, it was ear.
No, it was not ear infection first because she was falling to the side, which obviously is a big symptom. But antibiotics didn't help at all, and then she started falling to the other side as well. So it was very unlikely. So that ended up being arthritis, which anti-inflammatory and painkiller, and she's all right afterwards. But that was very sudden as well. So there was no that was the hedgehog syndrome.
I think it's worth mentioning as well that if an animal's really sick, then just weakness will cause them to be unsteady on their feet and start to fall over and stuff like that, which I don't think is something that people really always think about. I saw like a fellow breeder that I'm friendly with, I saw in her group. She'd had a really sick animal, and she put a video of the animal up, and the back legs just weren't working at all. There was just no power in them, and the animal's pulling itself along by the front legs. And from what I remember, I think that particular hedgehog had internal trouble, or maybe something to do with the uterus. And then the fatty liver disease had set in because she'd stopped eating. And then the breeder had taken her back, to treat her from the owner. And then she actually did make a full recovery. But it was just sickness. It was nothing to do with a neurological issue. It was nothing to do with the back legs. It was just sickness,
Right. I mean, I guess it's a given, isn't it, that there are a number of things like with people that can all share similar symptoms. Like Fran said, ears would be the first port of call. And then, I think you said calcium deficiency.
Yeah.
That's another one. I really don't think it's something that you can just look at a hedgehog and go, "You've definitely got that."
Well,
because
it's not like people. They can't just say, "Hi, my ears are hurting," or
yeah. Well, with wobbly hedgehog
my foot
syndrome,
hurts.
it's a death sentence.
That's what I mean. It's like,
so surely you want to rule out everything that it could be before you give your hedgehog the death sentence.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I mean, if you go to a vet and the vet, because it can only be diagnosed through necropsy. If a vet looks at your hedgehog and does minimal testing and says it's wobbly hedgehog syndrome, I would be itching to go to an alternative vet.
Definitely seek a different opinion would be my idea as well.
That's the case with a lot of things as well, isn't it? Like, I think some people go to a vet and they're very trusting of that vet.
Yeah,
They
because
should be able to be.
yeah.
But if
And,
anything,
and this isn't us being critical of vets before before anybody
Well, that
gets
one's
upset.
it's just knowing what experience they've got and like how they handle your hedgehog as well. Like, I've been to a vet before where I think
You
it was
can't
like,
get them out of
originally,
carriers
like,
or in a ball or something.
yeah,
You can't lift them out exactly the
it's
same.
like, can
So
I
it's
pick
the
up for me?
inexperience sometimes.
using a hawk glove.
Yeah.
And then you can
Had
just
that
tell
one.
straight away.
Yeah, I mean, it was it last year we went down to help the Royal Veterinary College with their experience with hedgehogs?
Yeah.
And it's nice that they're doing a step forward, but it needs to be more.
Yeah, not just based on American text as well. I think primarily that's
There needs to be more research done,
yeah,
new
definitely.
research.
In the UK, definitely there does.
I think the group's good for in terms of vet recommendations as well. Right.
Yeah.
Where people have actually been, because they might say they've got experience with hedgehogs. You know,
Yeah, that's something we did look into, trying to compile a list of good hedgehog vets, but it's a lot easier said than done.
yeah.
Um,
People just post and ask where they are, and
yeah, and one of the things that I think, you know, was difficult in the wobbly hedgehog syndrome department was that we reached out to a lot of the original vets that did the original study, and we didn't get any contact back at all. And we contacted the BVA to try and see if they would, you know, if we donated money, would they help? Nothing. So until we find a vet that's willing to, you know, go the extra mile for something that seems like a small population, but we are growing. I don't really know where we can go next as far as wobbly hedgehog syndrome. On that note, we're all just sat there now thinking, like, what can we do next? On that note, is there anything else anybody else would like to say that we should cover? I know we're looking at doing this once a month. Maybe each month we can do something a bit different.
I do think one that we could do quickly was quite a few people have been asking about wheel recommendations. There's not a great deal that we recommend.
Yeah. The three safest bets are the Carolina Storm wheel, which you can get from Jen Finchette on Facebook, and the other is Squazzle Hogs, which is Fran, who is actually here.
That's me.
And the other is the Tic Tac wheel, which if you just type that into Google, it'll come up. We tend to find that even if you use one of those, you know, metal ones that seems easy to clean, bars on hedgehog's feet are a no. An absolute no. So any wheel should be plastic and shouldn't have any ridges or anything that, you know, the nails or the feet can get cut up on. Is there anything else anybody would like to add to the wheel section? Fran?
Not really, no.
Wheels?
No, well, as long as they've got a smooth surface to run and they're safe and spin freely, then they're good. In my view, anyway. I know
how often should wheels be cleaned?
I do mine daily personally, but I am a bit OCD. I know my daughter is not as OCD as me, and she does hers every 3 days. But she's got litter pans underneath, so she changes them daily. Depends on the hedgehog's like activity level as well. Some are kind and get off to poo and stuff like that. I mean, those hedgehogs do happen, and Emily has stolen 2 of those.
Really? In all the hedgehogs I've had, I've never had
Honestly,
one that does that.
I will text you a picture. I will text you a picture right now. The litter pan at the side is full of poo. The wheel is clean.
Oh, I've got to see this.
I'm
getting invaded by Emily now. She's listening.
Carol, is there anything you would like to add?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I probably have quite a kind of disorganised approach to the wheels. I've got extra wheels, and I check them every day, and I'll tend to swap out any ones that are quite soiled, and then I clean them en masse about twice a week. But it just depends on the animal. Some of the wheels need cleaned or swapped out every day, and some of them can be left for a couple of days. It just depends on the hedgehog. Good old Gario, aka Fat Man, as you know, is totally foul. And I think there are a few of them out there that really do need a lot of cleaning in, but it just depends.
Kylie, is there anything you would like to add?
No, wheel-wise, I do mine every day because I obviously have very pooey hogs, like pooing and peeing in their wheels.
Fran's keeping all the good ones for herself.
Well, no, Emily's stolen them. She's stolen them.
I've never known a hedgehog not to poop or pee on their wheel, but no, I have to do mine every day. I do have spares in case I'm ill one day after it, but I do them every day without fail. So just because mine are dirty.
So am mine. You're all right. Amy, is there anything you would like to add?
I don't think so. Maybe litter under the wheels, so that makes a difference as well. Like you said, the litter pan helps to contain it a bit.
Yeah,
things like that.
Yeah, I think having a litter tray underneath is a really good idea.
Most won't go in a separate one.
Okay, so topic-wise, is there anything you feel that we need to cover before we sign off for the night?
No.
No.
One at a time. We'll start, Amy.
No, I don't think so.
Fran?
No, I think we're good. I think we're covered.
Kylie?
No, fine.
Carol?
No, I don't think so. I hope some people will listen to this and hopefully get some benefit from it. But we would certainly welcome suggestions for the next one in terms of topics that anybody, you know, from the club group or anything like that, or you know, just any kind of feedback on what kind of input you'd like next time. Then just let us know.
Yeah. We had quite a lot of feedback on the forum saying that people wanted a podcast type, you know, interactive thing. So hopefully that ticks the boxes. And
now that we know what we're doing.
Yeah, I think it'll get smoother as we get experience.
No view of my ceiling again.
We did lose Taya partway through because she lost signal. So sadly, Taya can't join us today, but hopefully next time. So let's sign off for the night. We've been on for an hour and 18 minutes now. So thank you for watching, everybody, and thank you for taking part, Amy and Fran, Kylie and Carol.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.